Welcome back, everybody. This week's episode of Into the Fire, where every single week we're coming together with community leaders to discuss hot topics, and all we're trying to do is shed a little bit of light by clearing the smoke on those hot topics. And we had our last round of interviews. We had 3 amazing interviews, and now we're back here at home base in the barn with man Rob Reed. Rob, how you doing?
I'm doing really good. You know, Ryan, I wanted to point this out because today is February 29th.
Okay.
On a leap year. Where do you think the chances of us ever doing a recording on February 29th again ever will be? Just wanted to point that out.
That's interesting. You know, it's funny. I don't pay any attention to leap year, but I didn't even notice that. It is the 29th today.
Think of all the poor babies being born today that the parents are going, okay, so did they get born yesterday or tomorrow?
So what do you do? If you're born on February 29th? So if you're born on February 29th, is your birthday February 28th or March 1st?
That's what I say. All these parents are trying to decide, do we want a February baby or a March baby?
Yeah, no kidding.
Which
one do we want to decide? Which one's strategic? Yeah. That's funny. No kidding. Well, no, it's good to be back here with you, man. And like I said, I always love coming back here and doing a recap, a review of what we felt were the top takeaways from the last 3 interviews. And of course, the last 3 interviews, we had powerful women from Winnipeg. We had Jessica LaRusso.
Yep.
Marriott Muller.
Absolutely.
And Kim Ulmer.
Yeah, 3 strong women in business.
Absolutely. So it was great to get their perspective on some of the hot topics that were top of mind with them. So as we always like to do, this episode is a summary of what some of those hot topics were, those golden nuggets that we took away. And I'd love to just ask you, let's start off with the first one with Jessica. Jessica was a great interview. We had her here in the office, and we talked about credibility. What were some of the top takeaways that you grabbed from that one?
And it was really interesting talking with Jessica and what she had to share because, she talked about believability, credibility, ethics, manners, like so many things that, seem to slip a little bit or have been slipping as we've become more casual in society.
Right.
That really strong, formal way of going about talking in and interacting with people has slid a little, I would say. But that doesn't mean that good manners and good ethics need to slide. I mean, we can be more casual in our conversation, but that doesn't mean that you start fibbing.
No, of course.
You know what I mean? You still have to be honest. You still have to be straightforward. You have to do what you say and say what you do.
Right.
And she brought so much of that forward. And, we talked about that from in business to projects that she's doing working with children these days because kids spend so much time being keyboard heroes or playing their Xboxes or whatever they're playing out there. And they're not socializing, at the gym or in the schoolyards and playing as many sports and things where they're as interactive as when the previous generations had been. So with that becomes a deterioration in their communication skills.
It's interesting. Does it become a deterioration or is it just that it's changing? It's a debate that you and I won't settle, but it's a debate that is going on where you are seeing communication change where now we are all living on apps. We're living on our cell phones and we're talking on social media, on Snapchat. And if anyone has kids out there, you see they're always talking on Snap, their Snap streaks, TikTok, what have you. And that's the new mode of communication. Is it better or worse? I don't know. Every generation previous always thinks that the new generation's way of doing things is wrong. It was once upon a time comic books were seen as disruptive to society and to kids. Why? Well, this is not a book. What is this? It's not even real words. I don't know what you're reading. It's disruptive. In the end, does it all kind of get itself figured out though?
Absolutely, it did.
We could debate this until the cows come home, but I think when it comes down to Jessica's talk per se, or her conversation when she talked about credibility. How do you develop credibility? How do you build credibility? I do believe a lot of that comes through communication, through learning from one another. But the one piece that was a big takeaway for me was the accountability piece. Do as you say, and what is it? Do, say as you do, and do as you say.
Yeah,
something like that.
Exactly.
It's accountability. It comes back to Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions of a team.
Right.
You have trust. You have conflict. You have commitment and accountability. And accountability is one of those things that's just so important in business that maybe we could spend more time focusing on that.
Exactly. Yeah. But it was a great talk with Jessica. I really enjoyed having her on because it was a good reminder to always use your good manners. And as I said to her on the show, it's always so important. You'll get so much further with good manners in life than you ever will pushing people. Ask, don't tell. People respond to a request far sooner than they will respond to being told to do something. And the animosity that comes with, being that whip crack and boss. I mean, now if you ask someone, explain the why, the Simon Sinek sort of thing, and go through all those in a very polite but firm, you still need them to do what you need to do. The job still needs to get done. But the approach, right, is so different.
I like that. It's a very slight change in approach, too, where it's different if you go, hey, EP, Tanya, I'm talking to you over there. Go fill up my coffee cup. Right? She's going to look at me and she's going to say, what are you talking about? But if I asked her, hey, Tanya, can you do me a favor? Could you fill up that coffee cup? She'll be more apt to do that. I like that.
Yeah,
Ask,
exactly.
don't tell. That's a great management tip. How often are you going out there and telling your employees what to do, telling your kids what to do, telling your spouse what to do, as opposed to asking? That's a great tip. So simple, but something that you can live life by.
Absolutely it is.
I like that.
Yeah,
Very
for
good.
sure.
Now, Jessica was a really good interview. Lots of good takeaways from there. And she really kicked off the month of February on a strong note.
She sure did.
And then we moved into Mariette Muller.
Yes, absolutely. And Mariette was a great interview as well.
Yeah.
So much to share because so many people don't know what Mariette and her team at the World Trade Center do for everybody. And she shared so many tips and things that they do, from talking about the coronavirus and, of course, environmental changes and all the weather changes and all those things that are going on right now.
I didn't realize how much that actually impacted business. Like you did because you made that mention on the interview where I forgot what it was. There was
Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah,
get that straight.
Yeah.
But when that came through a number of years ago and flattened a lot of the U.S. on that eastern seaboard, how that affected one of our suppliers and their delivery. And it took them a few months to kind of get back into the role of what they were doing and get product out. And we went through a pinch because of it. But, at the time, we didn't really relate it to climate change. But when Mariette started talking about how that makes a difference, how the coronavirus makes a difference, all those different things that happen to world trade and where our products come from, because so many of them come from Europe or Asia or wherever. I mean, there's so many places. And if they can't get products here, it stops business or at least slows it down.
Made me really have a lot of compassion for those companies that do business internationally with just how difficult it is. And it's something that I just took for granted because as somebody who just delivers services, it's very easy. I get on the phone and I talk on Skype.
Right.
Pretty simple. I was just telling you today that I was talking to a client in Dubai. I was like, no problem. Trade, no big deal. But when you're dealing with products and you're dealing with getting materials, it's a completely different story that I was just ignorant to.
Yeah, no, and same thing. As we were talking earlier, I laughed how we now have a fan down in Guyana in South America that's listening and downloading the podcasts. And thank you, by the way. But I just thought that was really cool. And how we're, through the mediums of social media, able to deliver this particular product.
Of course.
But, when we're talking about physical things, how that is impacted, even how the coronavirus impacted trade and all those sort of things.
Still will.
Still
is and will. And with that topic in particular, talking about the coronavirus, I think is just, that by itself, obviously a hot topic. And
we could have spent the whole show on that.
You easily could have. And I don't realize, because you listen to that and now they're using words such as pandemic to describe what's going to happen with it and the rate of growth that it's seeing internationally. And I don't think that the impact has been fully felt yet. I mean, we've seen it in the stock market this week. Anyone's looking at their portfolios, I apologize, but it's been going down. And I think that, we're still going to see a lot more impact from that. So it was a timely discussion from her because it sheds some light in terms of, hey, how does this impact businesses who are doing business across the world? And certain things like getting materials, like even an individual who ships product, they're a drop shipper. And so they ship product from China into North America. And now he's worried about the products that he's shipping across because he's like, well, I don't know who's handling them. Are we bringing stuff in? And there's actually starting to be regulations on the stuff that he's shipping in now that he wasn't aware of.
Exactly.
His business is being impacted like overnight.
Well, and his ability, and I'm going to guess this, but Mariette kind of touched on it, his ability to travel to meet with his people on that side. And the other thing that I thought was really, it's an unfortunate side effect, but the perceived racism that's coming from it. And the way people are looking at Asians right now in a kind of a sideways kind of glance. And I think that's so wrong and so unfortunate that that's going on as a side effect of this coronavirus.
You want to go on a hot topic? That's a hot topic. So great point. So I teach at the University of Manitoba for people who don't know, and I teach the organizational behavior and resilience, and a lot of my students are newcomers.
Right.
They've been in Canada for 6 months. So a lot of them have family in Wuhan.
Right.
Actually, right now. And so when I talk to them, I ask them, like, what are the stressors that are impacting you? And a lot of them have family in Wuhan. A lot of them have family in China. And we actually had a discussion about that last week, where when they wear masks, people are like, why do you wear masks? And what's wrong with you? And they say that people have made comments such as, well, maybe if your people just didn't eat bats and snakes, we would have no problem. Hold on a second. Like, that's so ignorant to say from people in North America
sure
to not
is.
understand customs and certain different diet changes. Like, for people in different countries look at us and we eat cows and they're just like, you guys are disgusting.
Exactly.
It's different. It's different. And so you cannot judge somebody unfairly because of that. And it's just, it doesn't make sense to me, but it doesn't have to make sense. It's how people are judging the situation, and it's ignorant.
Well, another point on those masks is when the people are wearing those masks, they're actually wearing it as a reason and as a show of respect that they're not trying to spread something. They're not trying to avoid catching it. They want to ensure that they're not being a carrier or a spreader of it.
Yeah.
It's actually a respectful move. So when you see that, understand that they're trying to be a humble, forthcoming person that's
Of course, yeah, no, it's
being respectful.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a little bit of both. Like, they don't want to catch it, but they don't want to share it either, because you don't know if you're a carrier or not. But I do think that again, that's an interesting hot topic where you're starting to see there is an increase in poor judgment, in racism, in jumping to false conclusions about certain things. Like, oh, you're from Wuhan. Oh my God, right?
Yeah.
And that's a very ignorant thing to look at. So I'm glad you kind of raised that, because that is something that maybe you and I don't experience, but knowing that teaching my students, I see that they are experiencing. And we had discussions in class about this and how upset they were that people were already judging them unfairly. And they're like, I've never had a bat in soup, but there's this bat in the soup picture that's going around, and everyone's judging everyone so unfairly because of that. And they're just like brushing
terrible.
everyone with a broad stroke and saying, well, maybe if you didn't eat this, like, who do you think you are to judge me? So
Yeah,
great idea to bring that up. And I
Yeah.
think that's something that we all need to check. I think we need to be aware of how we're making decisions and ensure that, we're not jumping to false conclusions, and that we're respecting one another as a community. I think that's very important as well. So I'm glad you raised that.
Yeah, no, it's an important topic,
Yeah,
for
definitely
sure.
is.
Some of the other things that Mariette talked about were global trade and recession, and how she doesn't foresee a recession coming and she knocked off a number of the markers that were on there. The fact that employment is still high, interest rates are still low, global trade is still moving, all those sort of things. When people are concerned about a recession coming, that, maybe it's not. Things are still not as bad as, say, the media likes to put things out there, because let's face it, the media is in business to sell headlines.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
Yeah,
And that's how
exactly
they
right.
sell their subscriptions, their ads, or, the commercials, all that sort of thing. So if they don't sensationalize a little bit,
Yeah.
the viewership drops off.
That's
So you
fair.
always have to be very careful and filter out what you're hearing.
Yeah, no, it's true. No, she definitely added a different perspective, and I definitely appreciated that from her.
Yeah.
It was a great interview. And last but certainly not least, we featured Kim Ulmer, the regional president of RBC, and she was another great interview, another amazing woman that we had the privilege of having on the show, and she really covered off and really wanted to cover the hot topic related to mental health and what RBC is doing to manage the mental health crisis in RBC. So what was maybe one of your top takeaways from that interview?
Well, there was a number of them there as well. And Kim's such a great person. The way she gives back to the community, she's such a strong advocate of what she can do for the community. She speaks at a lot of events. She's done a number of things. And for her to be part of the group with RBC, moving mental health in the workplace forward and making that a true challenge that they are working on and towards, and making it a mission of what RBC is doing right now, it says so much about, not just herself, but what that corporation is doing. Because we can talk about small businesses and more, or medium-sized businesses and how we can be very flexible
Right.
and very agile. And yet there's a very large company that's taken an issue, and it's a big issue, taken it by the horns and said, we are going to deal with this. We are going to support our people. We are going to give them services. We are going to create areas where they have some places to go take a little break in the day, right down to some of the stuff that they were doing for children.
Yeah.
Bringing kids in for education, all that great stuff. And
when you face those challenges in the workplace, we're facing the mental health crisis, and it's become kind of a cliche to say mental health crisis, but I believe the word crisis really comes about because we are not able to deal with the challenges of mental health in a very proactive, efficient manner right now, and the fact that medication, talking therapies, they're being used more than ever. And despite the fact they're being used more than ever, being prescribed more than ever, there's more psychotherapists and therapists more than ever. And yet we still have a mental health challenge where people, rates of suicide continue to climb. Rates of depression, anxiety, stress continue to climb. That is a crisis. And what I love about RBC is that they're recognizing that. It's not one of those things where they're saying, well, we have benefits, and so those benefits give you coverage on medication. We cover a certain amount of therapy, so we're dealing with it. RBC noticed that this is still an issue because despite the fact they have benefits that cover that, yes, we still have an issue.
Yeah.
We need a problem solve. We need to be innovative. We need to come up with different solutions and test things. We have a hypothesis. Let's test it and see if this works.
And we need to create a workspace that allows for people to decompress when they're having a strong day. And it's really interesting. I hear 20-year-olds that are coming into the business now, and they talk about how stressed out they are, and they can't. Oh my God, I can't handle this, and I can't believe that. And I sit back and I think, when I was 20. Nothing stressed me out. I mean, nothing.
Interesting. Yeah.
And that wasn't even something that we talked about, in that age group. And now you hear it very regularly from young people.
Let's talk about that for a second. 'Cause that's interesting. I've always wanted to talk about this. So, millennial, baby boomer?
No, Gen X.
Gen X.
I snuck in.
He's like, don't you dare call me a baby boomer. So, Gen X, baby boomer, you're on the cusp, right?
Yeah.
So I always look at baby boomers, maybe the Gen Xers, as maybe being more resilient than like my generation. Why do you think that is? Because you said, I didn't talk about stress. Do you think it's because if we talk about it, that we start to think that more? Because I do believe there's something to that, where we hear about depression so often that we become consumed with the topic. So what happens if, you break up with your girlfriend, you break up with your boyfriend, and you're really, really sad? I'm hearing words now, terms such as, I'm depressed. I'm depressed. No. You're not depressed. What you're feeling is deep sadness, not depression. And then you go and you say that you're depressed, and then you go to the doctor, tell your doctor you've been experiencing a lot of sadness, you're depressed, and the doctor says, here's a pill, because that's what doctors will do.
Right.
I'm brushing with a broad stroke, right?
Of course.
I'm not ignorant to this topic because I have done a lot of research in this and know a lot of the...
what you speak.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they will hand out medication a little bit more quickly than maybe they should. And we're in this very sensitive type of atmosphere right now, where when you grew up, wasn't like that, right?
And I'm going to say that it's not that it wasn't there. It maybe wasn't as prevalent as it is now, but definitely people had, people broke up. There was sadness. People have had emotions for hundreds of years. I mean, this isn't new, but I'm going to say probably even then it was a little more covered up, sort of like mental illness. Now mental illness is front and center, and it's accepted as people need that support, and it's not we're taking our challenged family member and putting them in a home, kind of removing them from the public eye. Right. Now it's front and center, and families are dealing with it, and they're dealing with it in a very proper way. I think what we're doing now is far better than what happened then. But I don't think that people felt the same kind of pressures from needing success. Social media. I'm
glad you went there because I was just going to go there. So
Yeah.
So here we're going to come back full circle.
Okay.
We started talking about social media, the impact. So I said that, things change. Things change. social media comes in. This is just the new mode of communication, and we have to accept it. We have to accept
Yeah.
it. Why? Because that's what's happening.
And it's not going away.
It's not going away. So accept it or fight against it. You fight against it, I'm sorry, you're going to lose because this is the mode of communication. There is something to be said for the family unit, community, togetherness, a sense of belonging. What happens if you have all of that, but now you're sitting in your room in the dark, and that sense of belonging, that togetherness, that community is now on Snapchat. It's now on text groups. But the entire time, you feel connected because I'm texting all these people. I'm connected. And yet you're by yourself still. There's an element of togetherness, of belonging, of community, of the family unit, of friendship that we are lacking today. And that is fact.
I agree.
And so when you talk about, hey, maybe we were more resilient back in the day for baby boomers and Gen Xers, maybe it's because you didn't have the influence of technology where, it was okay. I can communicate with the whole world at my fingertips. But yet you're lacking the face-to-face communication that is really important to building that resilient mindset.
Well, and there's a number of things that go on. First off, you're looking on social media, and everyone posts their good pictures.
Yes,
right?
that as well. Yes.
They are not posting the fight that they just had with their spouse, or the F that they got in math, or whatever's going on. They don't post the bad things. So you're sitting there and you're flipping through your social media and going, man, everyone's having this wonderful life, and I'm here by myself in my bedroom in the dark, all alone, and my life isn't that way. And how come I can't have that life?
I got money problems. I got relationship problems. My career sucks. And this person's driving a BMW and going on trips, and I can barely afford to pay my bills.
Yeah.
You don't know that.
It's not, what you're seeing isn't necessarily real.
No.
Whereas when I was growing up, if I wanted to converse with one of my friends, I went over to his house. And if he was getting H from his dad, you got to watch.
Yeah, that's
you
right.
know what I mean?
That's true.
That happened. And I mean, that was reality. I mean, their lives weren't perfect. As opposed to flipping onto Facebook and seeing someone with their cup of coffee going, hey, my life's really good right now.
Yeah.
And, we got to see their warts. And we grew up together. And, and then they walked out and they're all, Dad's riding my back. I can't believe it. This is terrible. It's horrible. And you lived that with them. Now you go on Facebook and see them smiling and, arm around Dad. And you never know that they ever had a fight.
No clue.
Reality is they probably did. May not have been at that moment.
That's right.
But you sit there and you have the perception that their lives are perfect. And my dad was just in my room giving me H. My life isn't perfect. Why can't I have a perfect life?
And we all face that. It's even, so we're talking about kids. Adults face that. We look around and, you might see one of your friends sitting there with a brand new car, brand new clothes. They're eating out at a nice restaurant. And you're sitting there saying, I don't eat out at a nice restaurant all the time. Or I don't have that kind of car. I don't have those clothes. I'm sorry. We all do this. It's human of us. But let me tell you this, is that comparison is a thief of joy. Comparison is the thief of joy. If you start to compare yourself with everybody else and you say, oh, well, this person has what I don't have, and this person has a better relationship than I do, and this person clearly has more money than I do. Look at their house. I don't live in a house like that. You're going to rob yourself of your joy. Don't compare yourself to anybody else. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday. Are you a better version of yourself today than you were yesterday? That's the only person you should be comparing yourself to.
I agree.
But that comes down to that lack of authenticity that we have on social media, which actually comes full circle back. And I'm not trying to force this, but it's funny how it comes full circle, is the credibility. A lot of people are flexing on social media.
Exactly.
And yet it's fake. It's not authentic.
That's where I was going with this originally. Absolutely. It's not real. It's not their lives.
So it's a big challenge that we face. And you want to talk about mental health crisis. There's a number of factors that play into it. I do believe that social media plays into it. I do believe that loneliness plays into it. Just because you're connected online doesn't mean you have this sense of belonging, because having a community is not only being a part of something, but it's contributing to something, contributing thought, contributing time, contributing to discussion. That's an important part of building community.
Well,
and we lack that too.
Let me go here with this. What is your purpose? Is your purpose to sit at home on your iPad or your phone, looking at Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever it may be, or is your purpose getting out of the house and contributing to your community? You know, is it not just driving your kids to whatever recreation there is, but maybe you're a coach, maybe you're a volunteer at the rec center, maybe you're doing 100 different things, but that have given you a purpose besides just sitting at home and flipping through your social media.
Yeah, it's true. And you know what's funny about that as well is there was studies done, I believe it was, I don't remember the author. It's escaping me right now, but he wrote the book Irresistible, and it was talking about our phones, our devices, and that these are irresistible wherever it is.
Yeah,
And,
I don't know where mine is right now either.
but they're irresistible to us, and the fact that we have to look at them. What are the social media apps? What do we go on our phone? We go on this on a regular basis. What do we look at that puts us into a negative state of mind? Social media, news sites, texting. When people were on that, they asked them, how did you feel afterwards? They always felt down. They always felt worse. When you go on social media, these sites are designed to pull you in. When you waste time, so the reason I'm bringing this is because you talk about purpose.
Right.
What is your purpose? What is your goal in life? What are you trying to achieve? What are you trying to do? If all you do is waste time on social media by flipping and looking at people's pictures, flipping and looking at people's TikToks, like flipping and looking at people's videos all the time, what did you accomplish in that time of probably half an hour, 45 minutes, hour and a half even? What did you accomplish?
Or more.
Yeah, nothing. You didn't
How did you
accomplish
become
anything.
a better person?
Exactly, you didn't. And so by not focusing on yourself, by being distracted all the time, you're probably procrastinating on things that are important that you should do, such as making connections, doing the homework, looking at our EP down there.
Yeah.
As she's sitting on my iPad right now playing. I love it.
But you know, and it's also designed to distract you. When you think about it, your phone buzzes when you get an alert. There's a little red icon that says, you know, you've got this many messages coming in from your social media.
Yeah.
All these things that take you away from even using, say, an educational app that's on your phone, or using your phone
100%.
for
100%.
research. I know, you know, my wife's on there all the time, you know, questioning things and looking things up, and she's doing a lot of self-education through her phone, you know. But again, you know, when you see that little red thing that says you got five alerts.
Yeah.
Oh, what's going on? I better check this out.
Distracted.
And most
We're
of
all
it's,
guilty of that.
Most of it's garbage.
Yeah.
Honestly, are you going to this event? You know, this event is coming up. It's crap.
We're all
it really
guilty
is.
of that, and we need to
sure
become
are.
more cognizant of what we are taking in and what we're spending our time doing.
Yeah.
And it's just something to be aware of. And I think that it was great that to see Kim Ulmer of RBC and RBC as a whole looking at doing their best to try and make an impact, a positive impact on their employees to help balance out some of the negatives, some of the challenges that we're all facing today. And I think that was a great interview to shed some light on what one of these forward-thinking companies is doing. And I think it's inspirational to see RBC investing in this. And if RBC's investing in this, I'm sure there's a lot of other companies doing
you know,
this as
Kim
well.
actually spoke to some of the others that the Shaw, or is it
Bell
Bell's Let's Talk?
sorry. Yeah, Bell Let's Talk.
Bell's
Yeah, of
Let's
course.
Talk, and she gave a shout out to them, which I thought was great. But the other point that we kind of made in our conversation was how important it is to have, if you've got great mental wellness at work, how you bring that home with you.
Oh, yeah, true.
Right? So that you're not coming home and you're dragging your knuckles, and you sit down at the dinner table and you're already angry from a bad day at work, and that just permeates its way through your house.
Yeah.
So when you're coming home from your 8 hours at work, happy, how does that affect your family, your evening, the people around you? So it is so important to have that good, positive mental state of mind.
You asked her a great question, which was, what do you do for your mental health? And it was a good question. And the first thing she said was, I go to the gym.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing. You go to the gym because you work on yourself. You get all that stress out. You're able to get the heart pumping, the lungs full of air, the blood's flowing, and you're going to feel good. It's a stress reliever. You get those good chemicals going. That's a great stress reliever.
It sure
Something
is.
as simple as the gym, eating right, making sure you're present with your family, put the phone away, ask them how their day was. I think that's really important. If you have a stressful day at work, don't bring it home with you. And I think that's...
Or at least try not to. And I know it's
easier said than done.
Easily for the two of us to sit here enjoying our coffees and to chit-chat. But not so easy to do always. But if you work and you practice, it's like anything. The more you practice, the better you become at it. And when you have that practice, the positive mental state, and there's a number of ways of doing it, but you start to live it better.
You do.
And the stresses start to drop away because they're not sitting on your shoulder.
Of course, yeah, and we all know. Like, let's be honest, none of us are going to be perfect at that. We're all going to screw up. We're all going to come home and, be jerks sometimes. We're all going to be short in certain instances. Like, that's called being a human being. It's called being a human being, so it's fine, right? But the key is to try and do your best to control that.
But there's a difference. Is it sometimes or always?
Yeah.
Sometimes as being human always means you need to make a change.
Correct.
As simple as that. Something is not right in your life. You need to look into it, discover it, be a little bit more self-aware, and start making those changes. And I think that's very critical for people.
Completely agree, man. Completely agree. So we had some great interviews in the month of February. Again, we had some very strong women. We had Jessica LaRusso, Marriott Muller, and Kim Ulmer. And it was a true pleasure having them on the show.
Yeah,
On
3 great community members.
Yeah.
Really glad to have them all on.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And we're definitely looking forward to this upcoming month of March. In the interviews there, we have Connie Walker.
Yep, from the United Way.
United Way. We got Mr. Dave Angus, and Dave Angus has got a very well-known name. Used to be the former president of the Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce, now president of
Johnson Insurance.
Johnson Insurance.
The Johnson Group, yeah.
Johnson Group. And then I believe we got Terry Shaw's as well already booked.
Terry Shaw booked?
Terry
Okay.
Shaw's booked
from the
already.
Manitoba Trucking Association.
I'm excited about that one too. It's going to be a good one. We got some disruption facing the trucking facing the trucking industry. A lot of disruption facing there with self-driving trucks. So there's going to be some interesting discussion there, interesting debate, and some things that maybe I didn't even know about before. So
well, Manitoba is such a hub for trucking.
It is.
That Terry's going to have a lot of insight as to what's going on, not just in the trucking industry, but in the economy, where things are going. When trucks are moving, the economy's strong. If trucks are slowing down, it's one of the lead indicators. And, how do we ship goods and all those great things.
It's going to be interesting.
It's going to be a really good conversation with Terry.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Me
Really
too.
looking forward to it.
Yeah.
But man, it's always fun getting back here with you, hearing about some of the top takeaways. Of course, we have fun recording this, and the one thing I'll say is if you're enjoying the episodes, then please continue to like the shows on YouTube. Continue to subscribe on podcasts. Again, you can catch this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Overcast. Anywhere you download podcasts, you can find the show on YouTube, of course. And give Rob a follow on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn especially. LinkedIn's our top platform right now. And we're seeing a lot of great engagement on there. Lots of likes, shares, comments, and continue to engage with him. And if you see him in public, do not ever feel shy to stop by and shake the man's hand and just have a conversation.
For sure. Made some great friends that way. Don't forget, we're also out on the podcasts as well as Spotify.
Yeah.
So you can see us there. And as much as I like likes, I love shares.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. I hear you. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, it's good getting back in the studio with you, my man.
It is.
We look forward to the next 3 episodes, and we'll be back here in March when hopefully it's less snow outside and some more sunny skies.
Yeah, well, we won't be able to do this show for another 4 years.
Oh my God. That's right. That's right. Get out of here. All right, everybody. That's this week's episode of Into the Fire, where every single week, all we're trying to do is we're just trying to shed some light by clearing the smoke on hot topics. But we will catch you back here next week.
See you next week.